What's up, hustlers? Today we're going to be going through an intro to lists in Python. So a list, very simply, is just an array of elements, and elements being things inside that array. So like a list starts with uh, what's it called, a rectangular bracket, and the elements would be things like one, two, three, or you could have a list containing things like one, two, three, or you could have the element B lists themselves. So one, two, so this would be a two-dimensional list or two-dimensional array. And by the way, list and array are the exact same thing. They mean the same thing. So and three, whoops, three, cannot type right today. Three, four, and then close that off. Right, so these are all arrays. And you access each element by index. So it starts at 0. So to get element 3, we would say A of 2. And to get 1, we would say A of 1. Let's do some printing to the screen so we actually see this in action. So let's say we wanted to get the last element. We would say A2. So remember, you have a text editor and a terminal to do your scripting. So you say Python script.py, and that's the third, or number 3, which actually is the third element. But let's say we don't know how many things are in the array, but we just want to get the last element. Well, there's a Python way to do this, and that's just saying A of -1, whoops, not -10, and that will return 3. We should see 3 here twice, and there it is. Another thing you can do in lists is you can loop through each element and do operations on the elements. So you say for I in, let's say, B, print I, and it doesn't have to be I as a variable. You could say for ix, for awesome in B, print awesome. There it is, 1, 2, 3. And if we were to print for awesome in C, it should print 2 things, which is the array 1, 2, and the array 3, 4. Right, so one more thing about arrays is you can also access elements in a different way than just one by one. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's create a bigger array than what we have right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So let's forget this stuff. So let's just comment it out. Now, let's say we wanted to get every other element. So 1, 3, 5. You could write a loop to do that, but turns out you don't need to. Python has a shorthand way of doing that. So you wanted to get a new variable, so you'd say B is A of, you start at the first element, right? You jump by 2, and then you end at the last element. So starting, how many steps, ending. And you don't really have to specify this or this. Python will know that it means by default first, and this means by default last. So let's see that in action. Let's print B. What? Oh, I'm so sorry. I got those mixed up. So it's first element, last element, how many steps. So default is the very first element. That's the one that I want. And then last element, we'll choose the very last. And then we'll go in steps of 2. There we go. You see 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So you see, even I get confused. Like it's not a big deal. If you don't expect yourself to completely remember this. You can always Google uh, the question you have, or Google list skip by 2, and then you'll find the answer. But this was just a quick intro to lists, and lists are very useful, as you can imagine. Like any picture that you have on your computer, like JPEGs and stuff, you can actually get the array from each of those JPEGs as lists, or like NumPy arrays, which we'll get into later, and then filter images, because images at the end of the day are just two-dimensional arrays full of numbers that represent how intense or the image is at that specific point, right? So a little bit of a mouthful, but that's lists, and I'll see you in the next lesson.